Beyond the Waves is a Hail Hail Media production. It may contain sweary words and adult situations may be discussed. If you're in the company of underage Tims, turn off the show now and listen back later. If you'd like to get in touch with the show, email us at beyondthewaves67@gmail.com. You can also reach us on Twitter at BTW Celtic Show, or check us out on Facebook and join our group at Beyond the Waves. Hail, hail, and keep the faith. Welcome to the Beyond the Wave Celtic Football Show. My name is Graham Wilson, and today we saw a cut and paste management job. That's the only way that I can refer to it from Neil Lennon. 1-1 result, and not good enough. I don't think that needs to be said. A lot of excuses being thrown out, a lot of referring to fixture congestion, and there's just so much going on right now, and the players are tired, and now there's international duty coming up, and how are they going to manage this? I don't even understand how this is even an issue. For me, it just basically indicates Neil Lennon's lack of faith in the kids in this team, and a complete abandonment of a tactical plan coming up against SPL opponents. Essentially just looking to our results and our performances in Europe against completely different sides and completely different philosophies of how to play football and completely different levels of talent and skill, and then applying it in the SPL as if the opponent that we're going up against is going to be similar somehow, in spite of the fact that when we go up against a St. Johnson at home, we are going to be essentially the Barcelona dictating against the side that we're going up against, not the other way around. We're not going to have any problem, or we shouldn't anyway have any problem with maintaining possession and dictating the tempo of the game. This is another term that repeatedly is coming up this season, especially in SPL ties. Tempo, complete lack thereof. And there's a lot of slagging of the players going about the message boards as well as Twitter, and saying that they didn't show up and there was a lack of effort. And to a certain extent, I feel that there was an element of that. But let me ask you something. If you're going to play players consistently out of position, no matter who the opponent is going to be, and they're not having success in that role, and you don't shift them back to where they're ideally suited, where they have the best possible chance of getting a positive performance, then what do you expect? Playing Chris Commons wide right when he is such a left-footed player is mind-boggling to me, especially when we played the first half, the complete first half, watching him time and again turn the ball into players, directly into players, up that right-hand side. First off, he doesn't have the pace to play out wide. He needs to be played through the center channel. We've seen a lot of success from him as almost a second striker, or maybe even the tip of a spear and a diamond or a 4-2-3-1. And in this game, it seemed as though he was more utilized in wide areas, which for the life of me, I'll never understand, because he rarely has success in playing in that role. So when he possesses the ball up the flanks and then cuts the ball in, especially from the right-hand side, I mean, it's because he has to. He doesn't have a right foot. Now, compound that with the lack of an advancing midfielder, which typically would be a Wanyama, although Brown was playing today, which I'm just at a loss for. Brown was nowhere to be found. Brown consistently was 10 yards behind the play, and was content to just jog about throughout the center circle, essentially throughout the game. I mean, just completely missing throughout the game. Now, I'm hesitant to blame Scott Brown or to come down on Scott Brown, especially considering we know that he's never going to give anything less than 100% for this side. We know that. That's why he's the armband. That's why he's earned it, and he's displayed that time and again. But when he's repeatedly having to get injections for a debilitating, degenerative hip injury throughout, and we're trying to preserve him for European ties. Now, he didn't play midweek because of a virus. Now, everybody who's had a virus, which I would, basically consider everybody on the mother effing planet, that you lose hydration, which is essential for any footballer who's going to play 90 minutes, as Scott Brown did today. You're going to lose hydration. He might have dropped a stone. I mean, he certainly didn't look up to it today. So why he was starting, and then why he played 90 minutes, why Neil Lennon wasn't able to observe the ineffectiveness of Scott Brown is beyond me. Now, contrary to the Chris Commons conundrum, we had Sammy, who we've talked about at length about the renaissance in his career, finding loads of success and effectiveness down that left-hand flank. Now today, for some reason, he was played more centrally, where we know through extensive evidence that he is not going to be effective playing through the center because he doesn't have the technical ability back to goal. Receiving the ball at his feet, he's going to get dispossessed. He's far too easily pushed off the ball. We know this. So why is Sammy playing a more central role out there with Mikko? Play him out on the left if you're going to play him. He needs an out ball to run onto. That's his outlet. You play him somewhere else, you can't slag him for putting in a bad effort or being ineffective. You can't. It's not his fault. And we've talked about his obedience. Gordon Strachan loved him for that. Whatever you told him to do, he would do. Well, he did it today, and he wasn't effective. We know he's not going to be effective in playing that role. See Tony Mowbray's entire stay at Celtic. He tried to squeeze him into that. Never worked. Neil Lennon found the sweet spot, so to speak, for Sammy. But this week, for some reason, in my mind, I think it was trying to shoehorn in Scott Brown into the starting 11. And that congested the midfield. He wanted to play Sammy up top. Well, it's just not effective. When you have a player like Samaras playing up top with a Miku, who's more of a supporting striker, based on all evidence that we have so far. He's not a poacher. He's not an executioner in the box. He's a supporting striker with fantastic technical ability who can set up opportunities, who can create chances. So essentially you have a midfielder, a slashing midfielder playing up top with a second striker. Therein lies the reason why there was no teeth in the attack throughout the entire game until Tony Watt came on. And there was absolutely zero link-up because Chris Commons is played out of position. Chris Commons needs to be played centrally, and he needs the support of the midfield advancing. When you have a midfield made up of Victor Wanyama, Joe Ledley, and Scott Brown, I think there is confusion as to what role each of them is going to be playing, what space each of them is supposed to be occupying, what their specific roles are. And that was evidence today. We had zero shape. When the starting 11 came out this morning, I was approving, but and I was approving because yes, all of these players came off of a fantastic victory against Barcelona. Let's not forget that they came off of a fantastic victory against Barcelona. They're all going to be up for it. They're all going to be feeling it, confident. But what I was not expecting was us to come out and play a similar formation and a similar tactical breakdown while expecting to have the majority of the ball. That to me was just mind-boggling, with the one exception obviously being Matthews going back to right back, filling in for Lustig, and then Charlie Mulgrew sliding in back at left back, which aside from a couple of missteps, I thought Mulgrew was pretty decent at left back. We let in the equalizing goal, just falling asleep completely at the back, shambolic defending, and it was fortunate that we weren't equalized prior to that, if not for another incredible save from Fraser Forster. And we were, let's be honest, we were fortunate to get the goal that we had because the goal, and not in terms of the authenticity of the goal or the legitimacy of the goal, it was a goal. It was a goal nonetheless. Fantastic performance once again from Tony Watt. But it wasn't from this magical sort of very attractive build-up that we're known for possessing within the SPL, especially at home. Today was just absolutely flaccid. Neil Lennon came out after the game saying that there was a lot of fixture congestion, the boys are tired. Well, okay, if that's the case, then why did you come out with those players then? Why not have faith in these kids? Why not start Dylan McGeoch? Why start Scott Brown? Why? It's for me, it's a cut and paste managerial job from Neil Lennon. They went out on the lash on Wednesday night, and rightfully so. Fair play to them. They deserved it. And then they had 2 days off afterward. So essentially we had a day to prepare, a day and a half maybe, to prepare for this game against St. Johnson, and there was absolutely zero ideas, both from a formation standpoint, a tactical standpoint. There was no shape, there was no link-up, and the goal, I mean, if you want to look at it comprehensively, if you want to look at it from a wide perspective, the goal came from, and that sort of middle run there, where St. Johnson had all of the ball, and they had all the ball because every single sort of build-up through the middle that we had was broken down immediately by players who are not suited to play that role. Samaras, not down the left-hand side, plant through the middle. Back to goal. Dispossessed. Yes, the referee was awful. This isn't the first time we've had an awful referee, and it's not going to be the last. So when that happens, we need to adapt tactically in order to deal with that. We didn't do it. So you can either adapt tactically or you can bitch about it afterward. But bitching about it after the fact is not going to get results. And that's what we need right now in the SPL. It's not the end of the world. We have a game in hand. We're in second place. 2 points behind. Not the end of the world. Not even close to the end of the season. And we seem to go through these November doldrums every year. Seems like November and early March doldrums. Both. I don't know if it's fatigue or what, but tactically, without any sort of spark, without any sort of idea. And we're going through another one. I just want to say fair play to the supporters that were at the ground today and from all reports had observed the moment of silence for Armistice Day, Veterans Day, as we call it here in the United States. No matter what side of the issue that you take on it. And I have my side. Rev has his side. Coach has his side. You know, everybody has a particular perspective. But coming out and yelling and screaming when the club has mandated that they're going to observe a moment of silence, it makes you look like a tit. It makes the club look like a tit. Or a merry band of tits. We don't need it. If you want to make a statement, don't come into the stadium until after the moment's passed, or walk back into the concourse. Oftentimes, you can make more of a statement by not obliging than by screaming and shouting and carrying on. No matter what your perspective is on whether or not that should be done, we like to call ourselves the tolerant club. We need to be tolerant of each other. And that includes folks who feel that they have the moral high ground because of what they perceive to be the wrongs of the military-industrial complex and the effects that they've had in oppression throughout the entire world. We need to observe the viewpoints of people who don't agree with that. So I'm done with that. Fair play to those in the stadium. I think that was the right thing to do, given the context of what happened today and where we are. We're moving into a post-Rangers era, and we need to act as such. And by kicking off incidents such as this, just drags us back down into the muck that they have currently do and will indefinitely occupy. We're better than that. So, anyway, joining me as always from Perth Amboy, New Jersey, it's the Rev. Hello, Rev.
Oh, hey.
I just had to go off on a diatribe before I checked in with you. You watched the game today. Obviously, a major downer, taking a bit of the shine off of what I was hoping was going to be a really fun show today, and recapping the Barcelona triumph and the events that came out of that and everything that was associated with it. Tell me, what were your thoughts on this game today? It was hard to watch.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. It was just, it was hard to watch and hard to keep focus. It's with nothing going on, obviously, your mind wanders and you pull up your phone and Twitter and Facebook and, next thing you realize, 10, 15 minutes have gone by, still nothing has happened, and you realize, like, oh, yeah, I'm watching a game. Like, it was just hard to, keep focus.
Flat, definitely. Very flat.
I was hoping to, when the show started, be able to shout Tony fucking Watt again, but,
Well, listen, you have creative license. I mean, you can shout whatever you'd like. He did score today. But some of the...
I can understand the European hangover, and I get that, but, they are professionals, and that starting 11 is not the only 11, are not the only 11 players we have on the team. So,
exactly.
Why, like you said, just, copy and paste what we did on Wednesday. Why not start out, Miku and Tony Watt, or, and then put, like you said, Dylan McGeek in, start him instead of Bruni, and Joe Chalmers, and in
What happened
as
to
well.
Twardzik? What happened to? I mean,
Exactly.
Joe Ledley. Now, some of the substitutions for me were just Tony Watt coming in. Yes, absolutely, 100% justified. But why take off Ledley? I mean, okay, I get the perspective. Ledley's played a lot of football lately, and he's just nobody works harder than him. But Scott Brown is a liability. He was a liability throughout large portions of this game. So again, that points to, for me, it points to the perspective of we have our eye on Europe at the expense of our SPL results. That to me was, let's give Joe Ledley a bit of a rest because we're going to need him for Europe and other SPL ties and so on and so forth, without taking into consideration that we have a game that needs to be won right here. And at that time, I mean, you could have landed a plane through the amount of space that we were leaving open in certain areas. And why not bring in Philip Twardzik? What happened to Philip Twardzik? Is he injured? I mean,
Jackson Irving, what happened to him? He played a couple games at the beginning of the season, or maybe just one, I don't remember, and he kind of disappeared.
Yeah, I think, I think that it's not just the players here who are tired. And let's just call it for what it is. Neil Lennon he has the big chair at a big club, a worldwide club that is competing right now in 4 competitions, including the biggest club competition on the face of the earth. And Neil Lennon has found himself up against the possibly greatest club football side ever. And he's done a masterful job at figuring out how to break them down, or emulating some of the lessons that have been demonstrated from Mourinho's Inter of 2010, as well as some of the international sides even that have had success against the Spanish international side that plays a very similar style of football to Barcelona. And then, obviously, I don't like to liken anything that this club does with Chelsea, but obviously they had the result against Barcelona as well. And Neil Lennon found a way to get a group of players, 11 players that cost less than £7 million, to have the desired result. And that's not to be taken away or diminished whatsoever. But he has invested quite a bit, I'm sure, of mental exertion, and there has to be a certain element of exhaustion on his part. And how much of his attention is being taken away from these SPL ties, where he needs to come up with a game plan to attack the opponent on the day. We talked about this last week. It seemed as though we were sort of devoid of ideas in how to break down Dundee United, and almost emulating a warm-up side for this Barcelona game. Now, on the flip side, we're playing a starting 11 that is sort of a residue, if you will, of the Barcelona game, without any sort of. I mean, if you're listening, first off, the Skype lines are open. Please, give us a call. Let us know what your thoughts were on the game today. For me, I just didn't see any ideas coming from this. I thought when I saw the starting 11 this morning, I thought maybe a 4-2-3-1. Put Scott Brown out wide right, especially considering we ripped this St. Johnson side apart a fortnight ago, 5-1. With Commons playing that central role, he scores a hat trick, right? Scott Brown plays out wide right, just coming back from sort of tweaking his hip a bit further. It was a comeback game for him, and he looked outstanding. And we played it with the lone striker, obviously Gary Hooper playing up top for much of the game. And then, we could put Sammy on the left. I thought that would be a very potent outlet and open up some space that we could infiltrate in between their 2 banks of 4, which they're going to try and compact. Instead, we came out with more of a 4-4-2, 4-4-1-1, with Sammy trying to support Miko. Where's the idea there? If you want Samaras to play centrally, supporting another supporting striker like Miko, and Sammy doesn't have the technique to take the ball through traffic, and if he's going to be repetitively fouled and not called, then we got to come up with something else. We didn't have a plan B. And we talk about, Barcelona's Achilles heel is that they don't have a plan B. And we fully exploited that. Well, today we were the Barcelona, and we didn't have a plan B. Other than switching comments from wide right to wide left, and that didn't have any much more effectiveness throughout. So, again, we can talk about the lack of effort from the players. We can talk about them not showing up, and it's a disgrace that they're on all sorts of wages and they can't get a result in the SPL. Let me ask you, if you're, I'll just create a hypothetical here. Let's say, on your job, okay? You're a machinist, and you're a fantastic machinist. You get all sorts of praise about the way at which you go about your job. And the foreman comes out and says, right, you're a good machinist, but I'm going to take you off today and put you back in the sales department. Now, I know you struggled a little bit in the sales department in the past, but you're a really good machinist, and I think we can take that over to the sales department. And you go over and you try and sell, and you can't sell a damn thing. Now, is it fair for the foreman to come back and say, right, you're useless, you're shite, you didn't even turn up today? Of course it's not. So why do it? And then after the fact, why slate the players when they're played out of position? This comes down to Neil Lennon. He needs to sort this out. Yes, it's a big job for him. Yes, he needs a lot of flexibility. He needs a lot of mental toughness, capacity. It's very hard to do. This is why winning the treble, the European sort of domestic treble, as Mourinho did a couple of years ago and Ferguson did in 1990, that's why it's so hard. Because you have to adapt your tactics, your players, your personnel to so many different circumstances, so many different scenarios in a very short amount of time. But our first and foremost objective is winning the SPL once again. That's early. It's not time to man the panic stations. But there's some worrying signs, and there's a pattern. 3 data points make a trend, and right now we have a trend. Kilmarnock, Dundee United, and now this. And it needs to get sorted right away. Now we're joined by the Parrot, a.k.a. Stephen Monahan, the Beyond the Waves Celtic Football Show photographer, who does fantastic work and puts up documents with pictures and photos from each game on our Facebook page at Beyond the Waves, the group, and we really appreciate it. Hail, Parrot! You're live on Beyond the Waves Celtic Football Show.
How you doing, guys? Okay.
I'm not without words. We'll put it that way. I'm off on a rant. I'm off on several rants, but it's awfully hard to get too down on this side, especially on the heels of such a fantastic night and performance against Barcelona. But it's certainly confusing to say the least, isn't it?
I think certainly with the team today, Graham. I mean, you guys probably seen it if you were watching it. One of the substitutions, I can't remember who was going off, but Chris Commons thought he was going off and was jogging over.
Yeah, it was Commons, and it was supposed to be Ledley.
He was running on empty. I mean, reference the only thing I'll say is the team the other night in the Barcelona game. I mean, I've been lucky. I've been at the last couple of away games, etc. All I'll say is guys like myself, okay, I bought my season ticket and I survived the 90s watching Celtic. I won't stop going. But the product at the moment, Miku's a great player, but I mean, basically, Steve Lomas knows today, and the St Johnstone defenders know today, that they've got maybe 3 or 4 fouls before the yellow cards coming out. So guys like Miku and playing Samaras in the middle isn't his role.
No.
Certainly, I know when the cup draw come out in the next few weeks, I would rather have guys like Philip McGeoch, if he's totally fit. I would rather have 11 fit, fresh Celtic players. I think the squad's good enough, and I think the standard of Lennoxtown, when it's producing, as you earlier said right enough, is what Neil Lennon's got to basically say. I'd rather Lennon went out and says, well, listen, the team had a really hard weekend Wednesday night. We're going to let the lads on to express themselves. Within reason, certain players obviously have to play for the team to operate. But when Dylan McGeoch's get the last 5 minutes, Tony Watt basically, he changed the game coming on because he can RG, he can barge, he'll run the channels, he'll take the chances. Maybe Miku likes the ball at his foot and they can spray about. It was just
as I say, I'm not going to stop going, but I think it's very disrespectful the fact that everybody's going there, and at times they're tough. So we're not looking for 10-0 every week, but we're looking for the product on the park. But I'd like to thank everybody who was at the game today who observed the minute silence, because guaranteed, Graham, that BBC Radio Scotland would have had secret hot air balloons above the stadium with every microphone they could get.
Super sensitive microphone to pick up any. I mean, please, we've talked about the moments of silence where they said, "Oh, there's synchronized coughing." I mean, please, these people are just choking for one of our supporters to come up and do anything. And the fact that we didn't, and I think that's more of a get it right up-yous than any sort of just whatever you could shout out. I agree completely.
Yeah, I mean the other thing with the game is the fact that Aberdeen yesterday, the young under-19 player, Ryan Fraser, who directs the next Aberdeen Super Kid, he actually was withdrawn by Aberdeen from the Scotland team because he wasn't in the right place, and they'd like him dropped to concentrate on his club football. I mean, after seeing Scott Brown today, I know the lads and the homeboys talk about it, and I'm Scott Brown's biggest fan, but I think for once in Celtic Football Club's history, we've got enough midfielders. I'd rather just get Scott shut down for 6 months or a year and get him fully fit, because he was excellent against St Johnstone in the cup game I attended, but today it was just, as you say, and I know there's a European hangover and the team's going on, but it's just, we're getting up to Pittodrie on Saturday, and I mean, I don't know, it's no through Lennon's lack of shouting. I mean, certainly when we were at Tannadice when it was 2-1, he was berating the team, and I mean, certainly when St Johnstone equalised today, and you've seen the defenders berating each other, and Scott Brown as captain, I mean, I'm probably one of the old-fashioned guys. I like a captain to be a defender, because he can sit at the back and they're entitled to shout, saying, well, look, I've got the skipper's band, this is how it's going to be. And obviously, maybe not at the moment, but Scott Brown's quite rightly so the club captain, but no, it's one of the ones, Graham, you've got to just suck it up today, and we can hope. And the good thing, if you can take a positive, is obviously the silence of the game. Tony Watt again comes on and scores a goal at Celtic Park, but for me, it's keeping the league tight, and it's, the press would love us to be 50 points in the clear, saying, oh, look, we're missing the zombies in the league and all that. So it's good for Scottish football in the sense it's keeping everything tight. But as you quite rightly say, it's, although we've got to get the bread and butter right, mate, it's, as I say, guys can't be run into the ground, I mean, you can't tell me he's going to put out the full first team the Sunday in the cup game or the Saturday before we play Dynamo Moscow at Celtic Park, Graham. So, as you say, I'd love to have a little bitch if I can about. I know the lads that were there today, the Green Brigade went in a bit late after the minute silence, whatever, but the Green Brigade's there every week, and the people who are paying £200 or £300 to get into the Barca game, if you've got the money, and I'm not going on the moral high ground, I've got the money this season, I might not have next season, but get behind the team and have a shout for them, mate. It's one of the things. It's onwards and upwards for next week, pal. It's been a magical week in the club's history, but that's the magical thing about Glasgow Celtic Football Club, Graham, that you're only 90 minutes away from a good kick in the balls, mate, and that's what we got today, pal,
Yeah, exactly. And it keeps, I take the point, that yes, a competitive SPL is going to shut up the people who, are saying, oh, the SPL needs Rangers, and look at what's happened now. Celtic's going to win the league by Christmas, but it's the manner at which we play. Yes, if it's going to be competitive, and we're nailing it tactically. The players are coming out and they're giving a good performance, but for whatever reason the competition comes up and meets us in that. Then fair play, to that, fair dues. But we only walked away with a point against what I would consider a poor St. Johnstone performance today, a poor St. Johnstone side. And that to me is unacceptable. That leaves a hollow point in my mind. Now, the silver lining to that is we're so early in the season, and we've seen this before where you go into the doldrums a bit. I mean, keep in mind, we were 15 points behind around this time last season, and look what happened. Now that was a exceptional circumstance, no question about it, but it is early. There's plenty of time left. We do have a lot on our plate just now, but I want to see the mental side of all of this and the tactics sorted out. And listen, that's what keep the faith means. You don't really have an explanation of what's going on or how it's going to happen, but you just have faith that it will happen. I have faith. I have faith that it will happen. Neil Lennon has been down. We've talked about it in the past, peaks and troughs. We're in a bit of a trough just now with our domestic form. The good news is Neil Lennon has really developed, a bit of a stratagem about tackling the Champions League. We've gotten the big things straightened out. Now it's just a matter of getting the fundamentals tight and recapturing our focus on how to break down a packed defense, because that's all we're going to go up against in this SPL. Packed defenses, and when we've come up against a run of results that haven't been optimal, it's been this, and it's been through key players being injured and not being available. I think James Forrest, to a certain extent, is a miss. We certainly lack pace going down the flanks. I think it was a completely different side once you mentioned Dylan McGeoch. When he came on, it was a different side. There were some opportunities where I thought Matthews really needed to overlap with him. McGeoch's throwing his arms up like, what else can I do except cut it back in? Those are things that need to be sorted out. But I have faith that they will. It's just, it's disappointing.
The only thing worse at Celtic Park today than Celtic's my appalling attempt at a moustache for the Movember, Graham. I'm taking pelters, mate. There's people coming up and putting mellow buds in my face to try and make it look better. I'm getting hammered, mate. Pope Paul and his Black Mafia posse are killing me every week, mate. On a nice touch, I'm sure somebody better informed will report in on it. But the lads finished their charity cycle into Celtic Park today, and where Chief Executive Peter Lawwell was presented with a stone Celtic cross today at half-time. So that was taken on by the club, so that'll probably make this week's Celtic view, mate. But no, I'd just like to bring up, if I can, mate, the Sheriff's goal against PSV Eindhoven against Little Dick on Wednesday night. Did you see that?
Now, okay, let me break it down for you, because there's an out ball going down the right-hand side. I'm not 100% convinced that this is the same player, and I'll tell you exactly why. First off, his first touch, it was almost like a back heel that nutmegs the defender. So not only does he actually control the ball with his first touch and put it into his path, he does it with a bit of panache and a bit of flair, gets past the player, and then just curls the ball around the keeper into the top corner with his left foot. It cannot be the same player.
He's the black brat back, mate. As soon as he gets away from Celtic Park, he starts cranking it up again. It'll be interesting to see how he gets on. I know IAK were looking at maybe trying to get him back on a permanent deal, but I don't know how that will play in Celtic plans, mate. So yeah, I'll wait and see, pal. But listen, mate, I suppose I've no cash and carry rumours for you apart from my terrible moustache and stuff. If I can for 2 minutes, I know the homeboys are going to be really, really busy tonight, so if you don't mind, I'd like to finish off with a little funny for you.
Yeah, please.
It involves a very good friend of the show, Mr. Declan O'Hanlon, call sign Deco. Basically, he's an iPhone operator like myself, and we were having a FaceTime chat, and he'd had a few Chinzanos, let's say, and he says, Parrot, I've not talked to you in weeks. He said, I've recorded the game, as in the Barca game, and I went, yeah, okay. And so he's there with his kids, and he's got his big TV hang on the wall, and he says, oh, we watched it. I says, was the game noisy? I says, been at it. I says, I'd love to have seen, I've not got Sky, so I couldn't re-watch it, Graham. And I says, can you let me listen to the first few minutes? And he went, I'll put it on now, Parrot. He puts it on for G. The next thing you know, I'm looking, Scott Brown's in the pitch. And I went like that. Scott Brown wasn't playing, so I went, what's going on here, Deco? And he went, oh, listen, you're not going to hear a noisier stadium and that. The fucking Bampot, it was the game at Camp Nou 2 weeks beforehand he had on.
He doesn't even know what he's watching.
He doesn't even know what stadium it is, mate. You know, Cash and Carry, O'Hanlon, that's him. That's the Quincy's new name. So I'm sure he'll be listening in after college. So I'll shame him on your great show. But so yeah, at the convention, he doesn't know Parkhead for the Camp Nou, mate. So he'll be mixing up Maradona and Messi next time you see him. So I'll leave you on that little note and put a positive error, a bit of parrot love in there, mate. So listen, I'll live and leave you out, guys, but just to let you know, I'm going to, I listened to the Ryan show the other night. I said to Big Frankie Fraser, my programme from the St Mary's Mass last week, I'm going to send that over with my ticket, and Frankie and Chaz are going to auction it off in December at the New York Celtic Supporters Club to raise some money.
That's superb. That's fantastic. Really appreciate that. And shout out to the Ryan's band for putting on the benefit on Friday night. It was absolutely superb. It was 4 hours of straight tunes and lots of call-ins, and even the Rev got involved in it and was in fine form himself. But fantastic effort. I believe they raised over $1,000 US. So just a fantastic effort. And thank you to all who participated, donated, and spread the word. Great cause.
Yeah, mate, so one of Paul's mates we're digging out old programmes and tickets. The lads have got tickets for when Celtic were away at Milan, so we're going to try and get everything together and get it over to New York for December for the charity thing, guys. But listen, I love and leave you, so just make sure when O'Hanlon contacts you, give him filters, mate.
Will do.
And I'll talk to you in the Rev soon, mate, alright?
Cheers. Vincent the
all
Parrot.
Right, well, guys.
Hell. Vincent the Parrot, getting in touch. Fantastic form, as always, with the Mellow Birds, and trying to raise our spirits there with some sheriff talk, a.k.a. Mohammed Bangura, but I'm not sure that's even the same guy. I mean, looking at the replay, it's, that speaks to another issue, and we've dealt with that a bit with the Miku scenario in terms of, how do you fit in players who come from foreign leagues? And we've seen examples of players just slotting right in. I mean, look at Efe Ambrose, a bit more of a sort of unilateral, I guess, or one-dimensional position back at center half. Victor Wanyama, again, in midfield, seem to be more defined roles, but striker's a bit of a stranger one. It's a bit of a trickier dilemma, so to speak, because strikers tend to be more of a moody bunch and more individualistic in terms of style and creativity and ideas, and they tend to be more influenced by the style of play, the level of refereeing, the sort of attitudes of the refereeing, and it lends it begs the question even that did we give up too soon on Bangura, because it's not the first goal he scored for AIK, and I mean he has had a certain level of success. He's shown things that will make you say, I can understand, I can see what the scouts at Celtic saw in this guy. And then it makes you think, well, when he comes back, it's a 6-month loan deal. So when he comes back, how can we slot him in and get the most out of him? Can we even do that? Is it worth it? I'm not so sure. It's a bit of a tricky one. We're still even seeing it with Miku, seeing him come off at halftime for what I would have to say is a tactical substitution, and rightfully so. I mean, I would agree that Tony Watt needed to come on. I didn't have too many problems with Samaras being on, but Samaras is a midfielder and plays most effectively as such. So for me, it needed to be Commons coming off, and it was a bit embarrassing, as the Parrot mentioned, Commons running off when the substitution was being made. When Kyle was coming on, assuming that it was going to be himself, I guess he was begging to be substituted off, and it was actually, in actual fact, Ledley who was replaced as more of a like for like, and maintaining the same torrid tactical breakdown that we had, continuing on essentially what was an ineffective strategy. I think Commons needed to come off. He's played a lot of football himself. He wasn't having much effectiveness in the role that he was put in. It's all in the rearview mirror as of this point. But like I said, Rev, that was great stuff hearing you on the Ryan's band, and great effort and cause there by Patty, and a lot of money raised for some folks who really need that. Let me ask you, Rev, Tony Watt now. Okay, he comes on as a substitution at just after halftime and completely changed the game. The first half was just, I think we as supporters in the supporters club were suffering from a bit of, I'm speaking for myself and maybe a couple others, suffering from a bit of the Barcelona hangover and just sort of waiting for it to click in. Never really did so. Tony Watt comes on and does what he does best, really starts pressing high up and making intelligent runs and asking questions of the St. Johnson back four. The question I pose to you is this. Have we reached a point now where Tony Watt is undroppable?
I wouldn't use the word undroppable, but where he should be it should be a difficult decision every week for Neil Lennon of who he's going to start. If looking at, what we're faced with now, what our options are, yeah, he should be starting. When Hoover comes back fit, when Stokes comes back fit, we might, have to see who, at that time, who's in form, if anyone is completely or, not completely fit and, take it from there. But as of right now, yes.
I mean, what's the point? Why do the players play? We need to score goals, right?
Right.
And we need to score a lot of goals. And our support just thrives on that. Attacking football. Beautiful football. Glory. We need to score goals in order to do that. All Tony Watt does is score goals. If you look at his minutes to goals scored ratio, it is absolutely remarkable for an 18, 19-year-old. It's absolutely incredible.
For anybody, really.
It's incredible. There's a certain case to be made for riding the hot hand. And, tactics are essentially immune. And we even saw that. We didn't change tactics. Tony Watt comes in and he scores a goal. If you have a dynamic striker who can create their own chances and is a just lethal finisher, then with less than perfect tactics, you can get away with it. Now, if you're going to play two supporting strikers, one of which is actually a midfielder who needs to be out on the left-hand side, but you're going to play him through the middle, and he doesn't have the technical ability with the ball at his feet, with his back to goal, you're going to have problems.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be stale. It's going to be boring. The fans are going to be upset about it. There's going to be no atmosphere. But if you can bring on an 18 or 19-year-old sensation who has captivated the imagination of the entire Celtic support, and really much of Europe throughout this week,
mm-hmm.
that's something that's a spark. That's something that can drive us forward, and you can adapt the tactics however you'd like from there. But for me, at this moment, Tony Watt is the first name on the team sheet for what he does and what he's demonstrated consistently throughout this entire season. Comes on as a substitute at Inverness. Bam. Comes on as a substitute at Ross County. Bam. Comes on as a substitute against Barcelona. Bam. I mean, that's all the kid does. He is completely unfazed by having multiple players try and close him down. He has an ultimate faith in his ability to do things with the ball that will escape him from trouble. And his confidence in his finishing ability is second to none.
Did you see that picture of him or the GIF from the pre-match against Barcelona?
Yeah, with him. There's to set it up. It was Tony Watts essentially walking down the tunnel, and he was going to be a substitute, obviously. So he's walking down to the bench, and the Barcelona players are all lined up, and they're all looking at Tony Watt. And sort of the fable, I guess, that's going around, or the sort of rumor, I don't think it's been substantiated, was that Tony Watt was whistling the Celtic song as he walked past Barcelona's starting 11 lined up, not even looking at him, and they're all staring at him.
Oh, I didn't hear that part, but it's just like, you want to take that in captioning, not a single fuck was given that day.
Yeah, no question about it. Let's try and get in touch with an old friend of the show who has been in touch, and I want to get his thoughts on what's been going on lately. And obviously, there's some sort of external things going on. Looks like we're not getting linked up there. Tommy, if you're listening, give us a call. I know that we've been trying to link up here and trying to get it coordinated, but I want to hear from Tommy, who's just been absolute. Tommy, you there? No, he's not there. He's just been. Oh wait, that's got to be him. Tommy, you there?
Hello. Can you hear me?
I hear you. There's my pal, Tommy. Tommy from Glasgow has joined us. You're live on Beyond the Waves Celtic Football Show. How are you, pal?
Yeah, not bad, Graham. How are you keeping yourself?
Oh, not too bad. I mean, how bad could it be? We're second in the Champions League group stages. We're second in the SPL with the game in hand, only 2 points behind. Yes, we've hit a bit of a rough patch in the road here, and there's all sorts of reasons and blame and finger pointing and so on. But yeah, I mean, in the overall context, it's still not a bad place to be, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and hello to Rev. How you doing as well? Sorry for how you doing, mate?
It's all right. I'm doing all right.
Yeah, well, first of all, can I say I was at a wonderful place on Tuesday night.
Yeah, tell us about that, Tommy.
The Capo di Capo, the Chapel of Chapels. It all began, and sitting there in the front row, a couple of Don Curly Wurleys and Dermot Desmond and Peter Lawwell, but they were there with probably the greatest manager on the planet right now. Now, what I would have to say, Celtic are a counter-attacking team, a classic one at that. We've got pace, and the way Celtic play week in, week out in this league does not suit us, because teams come and play like we played against Barcelona and sit in. Now, if you look at Barcelona, they're used to that all the time, be it in La Liga, in Champions League even more so. And the way they break teams down is with intricate passing, the way Iniesta scored his goal in the Nou Camp, the way they scored their goal, intricate passing. And they break teams down by just passing them to death. And a lot of people say, why don't they shoot more? Why don't they shoot more and do it? Because their method is to play you to the death. If it takes them to 94 minutes and not have any goals, they'll score two, and knowing in the belief that they will score two in the 95th. Now, what Celtic did, right, many teams have tried it, very few have achieved it. And so what we did that night, and what we did, sent a tsunami around the world for what the fans did, for what our manager did, and for what our player did. And I couldn't care what happened today. In fact, a lot of this season, I'm wanting Celtic to struggle. Do you know why? Because it shoots down those dirty shysters in the media saying, the Armageddon and Celtic are going to run away with it, without giving the real facts that Celtic won't and never will. Even if they played all the games and won them well, they wouldn't run away with the 30, 40 points, because the 12 points that Rangers would automatically take off other teams is gone. So Celtic's advantage is already stripped by half. And so we're not playing well. We're floundering. We're coming back off these European games where we've had some tremendous highs. We've played 4 games, and 3 of them, we've come back off of them and tremendous highs. Because even though we get beaten in Nou Camp, it was a tremendous defeat. It set us up, it set us up knowing that the team could go out and with the platform that the fans gave them. And I've developed this theory recently myself, if you allow me to indulge it, and I'll pass it back over to your good self. The theory that I've come up with, the Celtic, the 12th man, it was missing today. And a lot of the big game hunters who were there on Wednesday, shame on you for not going. I've got a good excuse. The charity night of the charity of Celtic, I was touched on the Tuesday night and ended up giving 3 tickets away. But I've come up with this theory that Celtic fans, that what we've had to develop is a 12th man that lifts us above and beyond all the rest of the teams that come here. Because you can look at the home and away record of recent years. Okay, it's been altered, but our home record has been magnificent. And the reason why I think that has been is because the 12th man has always been against us in the signs of the referee and the establishment, and any team that came to Celtic where all the knuckle draggers could get away with injuring our good players, So what I'm suggesting is that through a period of time, Celtic fans, we've realised that the only way to beat this is, God willing, we get a brilliant manager every so long, like Martin O'Neill, even Gordon Stratton, Billy McNeil, Jock Stein, Neil Lennon can now be added to that list, who know what it takes to win. Because we need to go, Jock Stein said the one important thing, we need to be that wee bit better. We always know what we're up against. And the full spotlight has been shone on the cheating of the Scottish system against us. And I think that it's all power to us, the fans who carried the players when they were dead on their feet in the last few minutes. We helped them achieve greatness. And that's what makes us, what Bobby Lennox said, the best club in the world beat the best team. We are the best club because of our fans. You take us everywhere, you get no problems, and people come and look at it, and the whole of the world saw the best team in the world come to the best club, and they saw what football's all about, the camaraderie, the spirit, the Catalonians, the Irish Scots, the Celtic. It was the best game in the world, and I missed it, but I don't care, because at the end of the day, we're all a Celtic family, and the people who got there in my place, I know they loved it to bits, and everybody. So whatever happened today, forget about it. It makes the league interesting, and it shuts down these crackpots who say, oh, it's all going to be a whitewash for Celtic. No, it makes it interesting. We're not going to have it our own way. Sure, we've got at some point in the future, these shysters in the media are going to throw it back at Lenny and say, oh, they're struggling. But I think, through time, the truth will out. We will come good at the end. Sorry for rabbiting on, lads. Just let you back in, sorry.
Tommy, sheer genius. Absolute genius. I can't agree any more with everything that you just said, and I'm at a loss for how you can sum up essentially everything that's going on just now with this club in one breath. That was extraordinary. You touched on several great points that I want to reflect back on, and this is something that's missed, and even I'm not really present to this, but it's an exceptional point that's worth highlighting, and that is the loss of Rangers, and long may they stay wherever, Division 3, go into another liquidation. Quite frankly, my waistline could use some more jelly and ice cream. I go ahead and die again. It would be an absolute just privilege. But enough thinking about them. With them gone, every single one of these teams that's left in the SPL now has 12 points essentially that are up for grabs. And if you want to take the elite of all of those teams who essentially are going to take those 12 points that have been voided, that all of a sudden creates much more competition for Celtic there at the top. So that's something that I don't think has been highlighted nearly enough, and it's a very astute observation. Secondly, the points that you bring up about Barcelona and how that translates to our performance here in the SPL, I think are absolutely spot on. As you highlight, Barcelona break down packed defenses that they come up with no matter what competition they're going in, through intricate passing, through a tactical philosophy that is effective because the personnel that they have in each role are completely clear on exactly what their role is, exactly what they need to be doing, and they're 100% confident in their ability to do just that. Now, not oftentimes, but from time to time, they come up against a sheer immovable force, as is the case that they came up against not just once, but twice with Celtic. We held Lionel Messi without a goal or an assist in the first game and gifted him essentially a goal towards the end. And that in and of itself is absolutely remarkable. And the tactical acumen of Neil Lennon should not be ignored or passed over because of one bad result in the SPL, especially considering where he's come from, where he's taken this team from, and where we are now. And as I just mentioned, it's not ideal, the result that we had today. It's not ideal, the place where we are in terms of the SPL table. I, myself, and I'm sure all of the Celtic supporters would prefer to be at the top of the table in a competitive SPL, as we certainly have at the moment. But we have the time to set this right. We have the time to get players back who may not be 100% fit. And we have some time for Neil Lennon to get reset into playing a sort of style that can be effective in the SPL when we do have the ball. You're right. Some of our most dynamic, some of our most majestic goals that we've scored, especially over the past couple of years, have been on the counterattack. Think of the games, against Rangers. The goals that Gary Hooper scored with in balls from Izagiri, Samaras, getting onto the end of them.
That's when we're at our most potent. When other teams are coming up, we shoot them back like a counter-punch boxer, and then we hit them, boom. Now, Barcelona, their tactics different. There's different ways to play a game. Now, Neil Lennon looked at it, and he said, well, Barcelona, give them the possession. That's what they want. That is what their game is based on. So we turned it around and says, have it. But as soon as we get it, we're going to be coming right at you, and we're going to be hitting you your danger points. And we did that in the new camp. Barring the injury to the Samaras, we were going to continue to do that and cause them real damage because they were wide open all over the place in that pitch there. It was just a shame what happened. But the main, as I said, I'm not too disappointed because Neil Lennon in Scottish football, I mean, too many people do it down. And they're too quick to do it down anyway. We all know that. The media, particularly with the plight of Sevco, they're just looking for any old excuse. Today, the Celtic fans, we could have gave them the excuse by just doing one piece that we decided, we'll respect it. And we're doing everything just now as fans, as management and the board impeccably. We're getting 10 out of 10. It's just beyond belief, really. It's brilliant. But everybody knows the lines now. We know how to do it. The Green Brigade, the Celtic fans, and I have to say, because I wanted to take this point on your show, I've been critical of the board many times before. I've even called terrible things to Peter Lawwell, but for what they've got going just now, yeah, sure, it's not 100% perfect, but you've got to take your hats off and credit them with the way that they've implemented. They've shown faith to a young man to come in and do his jobs, and they've gave him the backing. And I said Don Curly Willies. I was only saying that. It's just my cash and carry patter. I go when I want to get the scampi and chips, you know what I mean? So and the mellow birds. So I only say that, but I don't really mean it in a bad way. They were sitting there in their trench coats and things, and it was a beautiful. Can I talk about that mass? Because the whole thing, if it comes out in video, the mass. I mean, not coming from Catholic stock, but not a Catholic now. But I mean, I sat through it. It took about 2.5 hours. But Celtic. It's not about winning at all costs. I mean, it does despair me at times when Celtic fans think, oh, we should be winning at all the times. No, I never want Celtic to win at all times. Never, ever. Because that's what caused the downfall of the shysters and IPOC's way. That's what caused their downfall. Their willingness to sacrifice everything just to win. It's not all about just winning. I mean, when I go to a Celtic game, when I left the new camp with my daughter, it was a birthday present, her 16th birthday, and I left her saying, it's been the best night ever, Dad. It's been the best night, even though we get beat. And when I left Seville, it was my best night ever, even though we get beat. The best nights ever that I've been with Celtic. When we won 5-4 against Partizan Belgrade, it was the best night ever, but we get put out the cup. So for me, I've enjoyed myself at times. I've lost, sure, the emotion of losing, but the most important thing that makes us different is that we don't need to win to show our true colours. We don't need to win to show what it means to be football fans. We don't need to win to show what it means to be Celtic forever, for 125 years. We've done things the right way. We've done things the proper way. We've not corrupted football by using financial doping. We've not corrupted football by having bent referees, perverting fixtures for decades, for a century. We've not had an exclusive policy of signing just one particular faith, exclusion of others. We have done things the proper way, and we continue to do it the proper way, and that's what makes me. So losing, they're drawn today or losing whenever, that means for a nanosecond, I feel hurt. But then I move on, I look at my children and I see them smiling and happy and think, hey, it could be worse. They could be Sevco fans and they could have a father or a mother who's a zombie and they're brainwashing them into filth and bigotry and hatred. But no, as Celtic family, we nurture our children with love, with humanity, and not to treat others in a bad way, to treat others in a decent way and look for the goodness in all people. And that's what I took from that Celtic chapel, because the Capo di Capo, the chapel of chapels, where it all began, everybody has to pay homage and go there, homage to St Mary's, and say a prayer for the people who founded an institution, something so blessed, something so beautiful that we call the holy ground, that we call paradise, because these people are saints. They did it for people who were starving, people who had nothing, children who came, whose fathers or mothers maybe died in the famine. They came here and we helped, we fed them. Our brother Walfred, Andrew Cairns, Michael Davitt, John Glass, these people were humans that stood against the adversity of a bigoted Masonic system and built a club out the ashes of nothing for the goodness of the community. And for another 125 years, win, lose or draw, it matters not a jot to me, because I'll always be there with my brothers and sisters. And God bless every one of these. Amen, brother. I'll let you go, yeah?
Tommy, thank you so much for joining us, and you're welcome anytime. Please don't be a stranger. Tommy, your voice graces these airways the same way that Shakespeare's pen graced the paper when he put down his famous works. You're an absolute just testament and a credit to us all. Thank you so much for putting it into perspective for us, and we'll talk to you soon, pal. Cheers.
God bless you.
Hello. I don't even know. I don't even want to talk at all after that. How somebody can sum up the current scenario so comprehensively and passionately and thoughtfully in such a short space of time is truly remarkable. Tommy's just a fantastic Tim, a fantastic Celtic supporter, and some of his work has been truly extraordinary. So shout out to him, and thank you so much for joining us. It's always a treat and a privilege, not just to speak with him, but to hear from him. And yeah, absolutely nailed it, pal. But you could, I believe you can check him out on Spreaker at I'll get the particulars, but I think it's the Tommy Gold Show. I just put it in my Spreaker app, which you can get from the iTunes App Store, and I have my favorites and just click on it. I'm not it's sort of like the numbers in the cell phones these days. I couldn't even tell you what my wife's phone number is. I just have it under her name in my cell phone, and I just press it, and away you go. It's sort of the same dynamics setting up with the podcasts that I all follow. With the Downcast app and so on and so forth. We lost the rev there for a second, but just to touch on a couple of things. Tommy touched on the fact that yes, we are a bit of a counterattacking team. Well, we're more than a bit of a counterattacking team. I think we're an explosive counterattacking side when the opportunity presents itself. When we can find an outball, like we found with Tony Watt and the just majestic goal that he scored against Barcelona. We've seen it with Samaras having that effect. But we've also been very effective and very just ruthless while having lots of the possession. Now, oftentimes it requires a partnership up top, a partnership of strikers. Most commonly, we've seen Anthony Stokes and Gary Hooper over the past couple of years, setting up 1-2s, freeing each other up to time the runs exactly right. And, just showering goals time and again from that. We've seemed to stray away from that. The only other option is to find some width, maybe drag some defenders out, opening up space for a late run from the midfield and exploit that. And we've seen that be very effective. Last option would be, set pieces as well as utilizing the width to put away crosses, from either headers or having the ball come to our feet in the mixer and putting it away. And we need to be able to find that teeth once again. Those teeth. Because as Tommy mentioned, these sides that many of them look at it as great. We're starting the season with 12 extra points because they're going to go up against Dundee rather than Rangers. So it's game one for many of these sides. And many of these sides that fancy themselves as coming at Celtic are going to do just that, whether it's at their home ground or at Celtic Park. And the past 3 league ties have done nothing to quell that exuberance from these sides. They're going to come at us. They are professionals. And on the day, they're going to be pragmatic and do whatever they need to, just the same way that Celtic did against Barcelona midweek. And it's up to us to stop them. And the best way that I've witnessed in terms of stopping an encouraged side is to keep the ball. They can't score if you have the ball. If we have no link up through the middle of the park, our next option is then to lump the ball up the park. And if we're lumping the ball up the park to a striker with a bit of size, but constantly gets... Rev's joining back with us. But a striker with size that constantly gets pushed off the ball and constantly gets fouled and doesn't get called for it, we need to find something else. So that's where we are right now. Yes, this competition does make things more interesting. Yes, it does make things exciting. But we want to see the best from our club. Our club is more than the trophies that we've won and the games that we win and so on and so forth. But we also do need results. And we need to hold those who are responsible for those results to account. And this doesn't need to be done. Let me make that point. I'm fully confident that Neil Lennon is holding himself more in account right now than anybody elsewhere ever could. Because, as was evidenced at the end of that Barcelona game, Neil Lennon loves this club as much as anyone. No one on the face of this earth loves the club more than our manager. That's a phenomenal place to be. You can't say that about many clubs. And there's a certain premium that comes along with that. And this is just an exercise to vent, to make sense of what happened, and to move on. But Tommy calling in certainly does process things, and I can't wait to listen back to it. Rev, what do you think? I mean, at this point, looking forward, it seems as though these SPL ties are maybe experimentations for Neil Lennon, and just based off of the evidence that we have as of recently. Experimentations of personnel, of tactics, of lineups, but there is very rarely any sort of congruence in terms of the teams and the sides that we go up against in the SPL with the teams and the tactical layout of our European foes. So my question to you is this. Do we need to sort of get back into a mold, a bit more of a mentality of tactically setting up to beat these SPL sides at the risk of additional preparation for the Champions League? Or do we continue as such, see out the Champions League as best we can, and continue to try and get the best results that we can in the Champions League? I'm not saying chuck it, from an otherwise scenario, but continue on as we were, and then sort the league out after Champions League is sort of over, or when the break subsides. Do we need to stand up and sort of right the ship from an SPL perspective just now?
First off, what I would think one of the saddest things that could happen is if after beating Barcelona and not advancing to the next round, that would be a travesty to the team and heartbreaking to the players and the fans. So I think, I don't want to say the most important thing, but I think it is very, very important to at least make it on to the knockout round. That said, however, I don't think that we should just focus solely on the next two games in Champions League, and then when we have the break until assuming we advance, try to scramble and make up points that we've dropped in the SPL thus far. Over until Champions League picks up, I think again in February. But why don't we look at who we have? Our prime starting 11 notwithstanding, and give the subs and the youngsters a play. I mean, are they really that untested as a whole? I don't think so. I don't, obviously I'm not the manager. I'm not, the one with them at Lennoxtown, but I don't think that they're that bad. And, take our subs and our youngsters and put them on any other team in the league, and I think they would rate, if not the best player, they would definitely be towards the top. So I don't know why we can't take a collection of, our reserves and see what happens.
Well, and that's what my suggestion has been over these past weeks. Bring in a Twardzik, bring him back, bring in Dylan McGeoch. He's, like you said, you place any of these players into a starting 11 in another SPL side, and they're going to have some pretty good results. I mean, I would fancy them to take on any side in the SPL. They've proven it. We've seen exceptional performances this season from McGeoch, from Twardzik. Tony Watt obviously is young, but when it comes down to results, as I pointed out, and when it comes down to needing a bit of teeth in attack, you want the most potent players out there, not shoehorning in certain players that you have an affinity for, who may not be 100% fit to sort of accomplish that objective of getting them back to full fitness and abandoning any sort of tactics in the process. I'm talking about Scott Brown. I believe that Neil Lennon has a bit of a blind spot for Scott Brown. And it's based on, obviously, as I mentioned before, repeated examples of what the Celtic captain should embody and those type of performances. But a blind spot is a very dangerous thing because it sometimes clouds your perception of reality. And the reality just now is that Scott Brown is ineffective to the point of being a detraction. When we have a midfield that's really comprised of three holding midfielders against an SPL side, St. Johnson, and we don't have that dynamic, creative midfielder, or if you want to label Commons as such, he's being played wide right in a winger's role. It does the process no favors. We'll take one more call and then we'll wrap it up. Joining us now is Jerry McMahon. Jerry, you're live with Beyond the Waves Celtic Football Show. Hello, pal. Thanks for calling in.
Hi, Graham. Good evening. Can't hear you wonderfully well because I'm speaking on the old cell phone. Missed the early part of the show. Can you hear me okay?
You're coming through loud and clear, so we'll try and speak up so that you can hear us too. So let us know if we're coming through well enough for you as well.
Yeah, I can hear you a wee bit better. I mean, just wanted to add some of the debate to today. I was there with my daughter, and to be honest, the seats I've got this season are about 10 rows from the front. So I keep finding that I've got a kind of worm's eye view of things. And sometimes I feel as if I'm going home to watch the highlights to find out,
yeah.
Exactly who played well.
Yeah.
But one thing that did strike me, and I don't know if any of the previous callers or yourselves have commented on this, I think, the absence of Sevco has had an impact on the team. I don't think there's the same drive, particularly at Celtic Park. And I don't think the fans are turning out in quite as big numbers. And I think that's having an impact in performances. And I don't think we're necessarily seeing the same discipline, for example, when we were 2-0 up last week, that we might have done. And, I think it might take us a bit of time to come to terms with that. On the other side, I brought a new fan to the match today, a young friend of mine. Managed to get a spare ticket, and he was just blown away by the whole experience. So, and amongst what was a kind of fairly negative day, I always think that's a big plus that we've got a new addition to the Celtic family.
No question.
But I do think that's a problem for us. And, we need to find how can we get more people coming into the stadium, and how can we start to get the team fired up and disciplined so that we can try and win these games and, entertain the fans properly.
First off, Jerry, that's absolutely fantastic. Bringing a new supporter into the fold and introducing them to the experience there at Celtic Park and the atmosphere and just the energy. That's, I'm sure, something that will stay with them forever. And that's phenomenal. And what you touched on right there, I mean, Tommy referred to that at points during his call as well, is that the 12th man, as it's been referred to with the Celtic fans, especially on the heels of that night, that magical night that's going to stay with us all forever. The Celtic support themselves, and especially those that were in that stadium, were really the 12th man. You heard Gerard Piqué, you heard Iniesta talking about the fact that the support never stopped singing the entire night, and we're always there, and we're always responding, and it just never let up. And that does have an impact. That has an impact, a positive impact on our own players, as well as impacting the players that we're going up against. Don't think that doesn't matter. And what we're finding is that, and you're right, and it's apparent in the attendances, in the, obviously I haven't been there to witness it in person, but viewing on television, it's a completely different experience for SPL ties as compared to those magical European nights. Now, a couple of interesting questions come up from your points here that I just want to sort of rhetorically throw out there. Are, number one, when Champions League goes away, will the crowds continue coming out? So the question then becomes, is this essentially a financial issue where folks have said, look, right, I've got a certain amount of money to spend towards tickets or match days and so on, so I need to pick and choose. So I'm deciding to go to these European ties at the expense of SPL games, so that when Champions League ties are over, will the fans start coming back to SPL ties because those will be the premier matches? Or are we going to see a situation where these sort of lackluster, I was absolutely the wrong word that I just used, but the sort of underrepresented, I guess, is the friendliest way that I can put it. The underrepresented sort of attendances to these SPL ties, are they going to continue? And is this going to be the new norm? And what impact does Sevco have on any of that? Quite frankly, I don't know if it has any impact. You know better than me, because you've been at the stadium this season, and you are right there in Scotland, and you do have a bird's eye view, so to speak, about the issue there. But if it comes down into February and it comes down into March, and we haven't shaken Hibs, and they're nipping at our heels, I would hope that we could get good attendances out to support the boys, so that we can utilize that 12th man, so that if there are games where players just aren't up for it, or just things just aren't working out, we can provide that lift that they need to get over the hump and get maximum points that we're going to need. And we're going to need them, and we're going to need to win this league. So it's a fantastic point that you bring up, and something that we'll need to monitor as the season goes on. I don't know if you have any thoughts from that.
Yeah, Graham. I think to some extent it's a learning curve. I think the board, I think Neil Lennon, I think the support have to get our head round this. Because as much as, Tommy made some points, is that what we do have is a competitive league. But in reality, if you look, guys, the performances in the league have been, I would say, quite poor on a number of occasions, mediocre on quite a number of occasions, and the number of decent performances, I think, have been far too few. And, ultimately, I think we, as much as it's not necessarily desirable to be way ahead of the pack, I think sometimes, if people are coming into Celtic Park and we play really well and we get some goals in, and the players are really rising to the occasion, then I think that can drive the crowds up. But I've no doubt. I mean, there's a couple of tasty matches coming up. We're at Pittodrie next weekend, and that's by no guarantee a given. And we've obviously got to go to Tynecastle, assuming Hearts are still there, and we've got Easter Road to come up. So in that sense, in terms of the season, I think that's quite an interesting 4 weeks, and it'll probably tell us a bit about what this team's got to offer. And although today was disappointing, I believe that will rise to the occasion. I think Len and Neil has to be a bit stronger with the team and find a way to get them fired off from the outset, and I'm sure he'll do that. Last point, Graham, based on listening to your show a couple of weeks ago, Paul Larkin, the Paul Larkin show, I ordered the book, arrived a couple of days ago, and I go to the book launch 2 weeks yesterday. And, in many ways, it's great thanks to you guys. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it'll be an amazing night, hugely entertaining. And, I've only started to dip my toe in the water of Hail Media. Obviously listened to you guys and hugely impressed. Started to have a listen to the Australian guys, albeit briefly. And it's a fantastic resource for Celtic fans. So good to hear a different perspective on it. I cannot wait for that night, taking a few friends along. And I really look forward to to giving you a call, very soon afterwards, and give you a flavour of the night. I'm sure some of your older friends will do that anyway, but I kind of look forward to that. So thanks for introducing me to all of that, and I'm sure we'll get it right. And I think I said this the last time, but disappointing today, but let's not forget what a remarkable week it's been, in the 125 years of our club. I can't think of many better. I've been watching Celtic for, 41 going on 42 years, and I've felt as good this week as I've ever done at any time in my life. So I think we can still walk tall today, regardless of, the draw.
Exceptionally well put, Jerry. Exceptionally well put. First, I want to say I couldn't be more envious that you're going to be there for the book launch for the Green and White Writer, the Beyond the Waves, by any means necessary, Journey with Celtic Band Pods. Jerry, you mentioned you got the book. I promise you will not be disappointed, and you won't be disappointed by the book launch itself. I mean, being surrounded, you mentioned, the Hail Media and the resource that it's become, and I'm with you, where I love hearing so many different perspectives from so many different places. The Australian boys, both the Homeboys Down Under as well as the Rebel podcast, they're just phenomenal. I mean, it's just, and these are all being done by people who aren't being paid. These aren't professional journalists. They're guys like me and you who just support Celtic and want to have an unbiased view, an unbiased perspective, and a sharing of thoughts, an outlet for all of us to come together. So I'm really glad that you've joined us and that you've come into the fold, and we just really appreciate you calling in, and hopefully, as the season goes on, and especially after the book launch, we want to hear all about it, pal. So thanks very much.
Yeah, Graham. One last thing. Did you see the piece the video that I posted onto the Facebook page the other night from the Spanish Sports Channel?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. The response that not just the overall worldwide footballing media have had from that night and that performance, and that result, but especially the Spanish media, the Catalan media, and then to see the look on PK's face while everybody was singing "You'll Never Walk Alone." I mean, it was just like, Chris Commons referred to it like, here's a guy that's played in the world. He's won the World Cup. He's won the Champions League multiple times, and the look on his face was like, nothing you've ever seen. It's just a credit to the support.
Yeah, Graham, if we paid $1 million for an advert on the TV to advertise the club, I don't think we would have got half the positive response that we have had. So I think in the long term, that's just just incredible for the Celtic story, and we can all be so pleased about everything in the last 7 weeks.
Too true.
7 days, sorry.
Too true. Absolutely. Jerry, thank you so much for calling in and
Hail,
for
guys, thanks again.
Hail, pal. We'll talk to you soon.
Cheers, bye now.
Cheers. Jerry, obviously referring to that video and it's posted up on our Facebook page that you can join at Beyond the Waves Facebook group. And PK's looking around the dugout while You'll Never Walk Alone's being sung and just looking around like, you got to be kidding me. Like, drop me on another planet. And it really was. It was Planet Celtic, and the Sefconians were nowhere to be found. It's such a sad story, Rev. Such a sad story. Now, we also saw the 125th anniversary of the club, the founding of the club, which was also obviously in 1887. The first game that was played was in 1888, as reflected on our badge and jersey commemorating that this year. First game being a right doing of the Huns, first of many. And we saw pictures come from the ceremony that was held, as the parrot referred to, in St. Mary's Chapel in the East End of Glasgow. And what a phenomenal place that looks like. I mean, just the pictures of the inside of the church itself. It looks like just such a beautiful place. I heard that, there were some renovations that had happened, and we also saw pictures of the Barcelona, some of the board members from Barcelona who had traveled over for the game the following night, attended the service, and it was a full mass as well, and just absolutely phenomenal. We also heard from Ian Bankier, the new chairman of Celtic, who made the comment, which, if he's trying to get himself in the good stead of Celtic support, this is a fantastic way of doing it. He mentioned that the Celtic players don't need to wear the show racism, the red card badge on the kit. We wear the hoops, and every week we display what that actually means. And I can't think of a better way to describe it. Obviously the chairman of the club has much of his role is ceremonial. Looking to for an analogy, I mean, if you look at the relationship between the president and the Taoiseach, if we're going to use Irish sort of political structure, I guess, if you will, Peter Lawwell would be more of the Taoiseach role, and Ian Bankier would be more of the president, more of the ceremonial stuff and just wide-ranging overall policy and so on from there. But fantastic performance from him. What were your thoughts, Rev, in looking at the anniversary of the club, the birthday of the club, if you will, how it was observed, and some of the comments coming out from there? We don't see a lot of that. A lot of that sort of ceremony within American sports to a large degree. I mean, obviously with the big entities. Yankee Stadium has the big memorial and the park out in center field, but it is very much the exception and not the rule. But what were your takeaways in terms of the fact that it was observed that way, and just some of the ceremony that was involved?
I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, I figured they would do something, but I didn't know what, and that was more than I thought they did. And the fact that, I mean, when you look at it, in hindsight, it's like, it's, Peter Lawwell and Bankier and Neil Lennon, they should have been there, and that's kind of their duty, for their roles currently with the club. But, beforehand, before I knew, I didn't think that, I figured Neil Lennon, that's, he's in a class of his own, but, given what we've seen in the past with those others in charge of the club, I didn't think that there would be much participation on their side, to be honest.
Yeah, it's the hierarchy, I guess, or the structure of the club. From an organizational standpoint, really hasn't changed much. Certainly in the past, say 10 to 15 years or so, and rightfully and thankfully so. But you have different characters come in and out, and most recently you had Dr. John Reed, who had a bit of a stigma about him, given his role in Tony Blair's cabinet and his role in obviously the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, which have not been popular amongst the Celtic support. And he was always looked at with a jaundiced eye. And Ian Bankier, obviously doesn't have much of that same baggage. And we have to recognize some of the things that John Reed stepped up and represented. Most notably, the statement that we aren't going to, take this, back of the bus BS anymore, if you will, and I'm paraphrasing. He came out and he made some very strong statements, especially throughout this whole Doogie Dogie and Rangers debacle, and he's to be credited for that. But Ian Bankier, the comments that he's made reflect his, I guess, understanding, and he gets it, which is nice to see. It's oftentimes there's some skepticism, about sort of the intentions and the wherewithal of those who are in charge, and a lot of that is well placed. I think you should be accountable if you're in a position of authority, or if you're in a position to affect things that affect so many people. And when there's silence, that can really sort of poke the fire of skepticism. But comments like this, and I believe they're genuine. I don't have any reason why they wouldn't be genuine. There really wasn't an agenda with the message itself, but it really gets it. And that's something that we all understand. That wearing the hoops does make a statement in and of itself that removes the need for some badge, that says show racism the red card. Well, we have no racism to show the red card to. And that's why we're better. That's why we're bigger than this. And it was, it was a magical night on its own, just from the feedback and the pictures that were taken and the testimony. But to have it paired with the Barcelona, not just the result. I mean, obviously the result is something special and spectacular in and of itself, but the performance of the fans, and it was a performance. There's nothing contrived about it. There wasn't a script. The people that were in Celtic Park that night have that memorized. That's how we live. That's the embodiment of supporting Celtic. And the display that the Green Brigade put up, and I mentioned this in our post-game show about Barcelona, I think this definitely warrants a spot at the table, so to speak, for them, for the efforts that they've done to bring the atmosphere back. I just hope that we can transfer this over to the SPL, because we do still need results from the SPL. We still need to perform in the SPL. And my hope is that, I understand that economic conditions are brutal right now, and that's putting it mildly, and choices need to be made. And that's more than understandable. But I'm hoping that at some point we do start to see much of the thunder that's been transferred over to the Champions League come back to the SPL, because the players, as today was evidenced, do need it, and the manager does need it. But we have faith. That's why we say keep the faith. We don't know how. We have no assurance. We have no evidence that tells us that any of this is going to be straightened out. But we have faith, and that's good enough. That's been good enough so far, and it'll be good enough going forward. So I think we'll wrap it up, Rev.
I just wanted to add, at the start of this, I just felt very apathetic and just, not negative, not down, not, we suck, what's wrong with us, nothing like that. I just felt very whatever,
down.
And especially after talking to, people calling in, reading chat and, like Jerry calling in, and it's just like, yeah, the broader scope of things, this one game doesn't mean anything, and we shouldn't get down on ourselves. So, like it says in the the opening, we'll talk you down from the ledge. Not like we needed talking down from the ledge today, but it was a bit of a group therapy session, and I definitely feel a lot better now than I did 2 hours ago.
Yeah, no question. That's a great point as well. We're not in this, we're not psychiatrists, okay? So we're not going to talk anybody down from the ledge, but hopefully, and oftentimes we need talking down. Well, I'm not going to speak for you, Rev, but I always need talking down from the ledge. But, through talking together, we sort of make sense of it and we move on. This is our outlet. Forget Clyde. Turn off Clyde. Support your side. You think you call them the Clyde and they're gonna have a reasonable conversation? Of course not. You're gonna redirect back into Sevco and Armageddon, and there's none of that going on around here. So that's what we try and do. So that by the end of it, it's not ideal, but it's not the worst thing. And we'll go forward. That's it. So, Rev?
Yes.
Very, very good job, as always. Now, I think we need to replace the term, or the reference, cheers. I think now it needs to be, cheers, thank you very much. I was hoping to get a soundbite out of that, but, things tend to get in the way, but I will get that. Of course, I'm talking about the Victor Wanyama interview after the Barcelona game. Absolutely superb. Love that guy. Love him. And if you haven't seen it, just type in the Twitter search or Google or whatever, Victor Wanyama interview. I think it's the only interview he's ever done, but at the end of it, he's just so excited, and he's got this big smile on his face, and you can just see how excited and happy he is. And at the end of it, like, Victor, thanks very much for your time. He goes, cheers, thank you very much. It's going to be one of those interesting examinations, like when we saw Arthur Borch develop his English and had just a touch of a Scottish accent. Is Victor going to have a Scottish accent by the end of this? Absolutely superb. So shout out to Victor. And that's basically it. Once again, I want to thank the Rhines band for their effort on Friday night. Also check out Big G on the Celtic Dreams show. He's been on for a while now and just doing a fantastic job. You can follow him on Twitter, Celtic Dreams 12. I think they're sort of interchanging what nights they're going to be on, but keep an eye out. And when you see the notice for him to be on, tune in, because it's well worth the listen. Chat room is great crack, and we can all use a healthy dose of the crack and the tunes and all that sort of thing. So shout out to them. Homeboys will be back tomorrow, I believe, with Danny O'Connor and getting his reflections on his time in Glasgow for that game against Barcelona. I can't wait to hear the tales that he has from that. And I'm guessing Homeboys are going to be the exclusive, the one-stop shop where you can check in and get all of the latest from Danny, and we wish him all the best. We have some guests that we're working on for the coming weeks who've I've been trying to line up and for whatever reason haven't come through, but hopefully we're trying to get Rocky Bats to join us here shortly, so that is going to be an absolute blast, I'm sure. So I'm going to be coordinating with him this week, and hopefully Rocco can join us, as well as some of some writers that I have a very high regard for within the Celtic community, who I want to hear from and get them on the show and sort of get their thoughts as we are in sort of a transitive time. So I look forward to that, and there'll be plenty of notice and messages on our Twitter feed at BTW Celtic Show. Of course, you can always follow the Rev at RevBoy, spelled BHOY, Ultra, for all of the latest on his Mountain Dew drinking, Halo 4 playing, FIFA 13, and all sorts of stuff like that. So anything else that you'd like to punt, Rev?
Nah, I think we're solid.
Fantastic stuff. Well, that'll be all then. Thank you so much for listening in, for joining us, and we'll be back soon after Pataudry next weekend. Looking forward to that, and sort of righting the ship. So for the Rev and Tommy and Jerry McMahon and everybody who's called in, and the coach, my name is Graham Wilson, and taking us out as always is Shane McGowan and the Pogues. And we'll be back. Have a great week. Take care of yourselves. Hail, hail, and keep the faith. We'll talk to you soon.
The island it is silent now, but the ghosts still haunt the ways. And a torch lights up a famished man who fortune could not save. Did you work upon the railroads? Did you ride the streets of crime? Were your dollars from the White House? Were they from the 5 and dime? Did the old songs start to cheer you? And did they still make you cry? Did you count the months and years? Or did your teardrops quickly dry? I know 15 was not to be on a coffin ship. I came here and I never even got so far that they could change my name. Thousands are sailing across the western ocean to a land of opportunity that some of them will never see. Fortune prevailing across the western ocean, their bellies full, their spirits free. They'll break the chains of poverty and they'll dance. In Manhattan's desert twilight, in the dead of afternoon, we stepped hand in hand on Broadway, like the first men on the moon. And a blackbird broke the silence as you whistled, it's so sweet. And then Brendan Behan's footsteps, I danced up and down the street. And we said goodnight to Broadway, giving it our best regards. Took our hats to Mr. Cohen, dear old Times Square's favourite bird. Then we raised a glass to JFK and a dozen more besides. When I got back